How's it going, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So, part 2, and in this episode we're going to be looking at the engine part of the model, and we're going to be looking at painting it, and also in there mixed up will be one of the alterations or modifications, if you like, alterations, whichever we see it, to the model. So that's quite simply what's going on. Very simple episode, this one. So we'll jump straight into it. Okay, so we're going to start off with the awkward part of clearing up the cylinder heads. As before, like in the last episode, around the control column, just some time extra thin, just to work your way through that, and it will take them seam lines out. Admittedly, something we aren't going to really worry about, because to be fair, the engine isn't actually going to be seen, apart from a slight modification that I'll put into this one. Because to be fair, the engine is actually quite nicely detailed. Now, as the way the model is built, actually doesn't give you any options to actually show the engine off whatsoever. So later on I'll be showing you what I do. But as you can see there, it is quite nicely detailed, but I decided to add a little bit more myself, because it says I'm going to try and show some of this off. So we're going to start off with putting some of the, I think the proper term for them is heat deflectors, but I'm going to call them heat deflectors, I think I'm right. And basically I'm putting these in because what I'm going to do is I'm also going to put the leads in for the spark plugs, and on the proper engines these would have been here, again shielding the spark plugs. Also put in a tubing in there, which technically is where the spark wires will be coming from, but because it's going to be difficult to actually put it sort of like inside, what I'll be doing is I'm going to stick that down and then basically put the spark wires underneath that wire to give the impression that's actually where they're going into, and obviously connect them at the end there as to shows that's where the spark plugs are going. So technically there should be two manifolds going into one, and of course as you've seen before, they've only got the singular manifold. So what I'm using is some soldering wire, and I've made two sort of doubled over, and these would be sort of give the impression that these are all sort of working their way into that the lower the lower manifold. So I position them as they should be, sort of between to the either end cylinder heads, and then I'll put the main manifold in again using soldering wire, and then there's a manifold that runs between that one and the one on the other side. I'm not quite sure why that is, but that's the way it was made. But using soldering wire, it's a lot more flexible, it's really soft, and it does make it a lot easier, sort of manipulative. That's a word, it's the right word, isn't it? Manipulative, I can't say it now. Manipulative, to get it into the sort of, into the right position. And of course, just some good old super glue will stick all that into place. And then all that's left to do is put the kit manifold in. So before I start painting, I'm going to cut out the panel that would reveal the engine. Now it's quite thick, obviously plastic is generally quite thick to give obviously the stability in the model, but when we want to show this off as an open part, it's not going to be very realistic. It's going to be too thick. So using a rotary tool, I'll basically take a large chunk out, but taking my time with it and continuously checking up to the light, because what you want is something like this. So when you start seeing through the light through the plastic really clearly like that, that's basically the time you want to stop. because otherwise, you know, you might go too far, you might start melting the plastic, and it's just going to go all wrong. So then I cut out the panel that is going to be open. Did get a little bit carried away, so I made a little bit of a scuff or a nick in the end there, so that's going to have to be sorted out. It's a little bit annoying. And then just to clear it all up, again some Tammy extra thin, that will take any of that extra swath away. I'm also going to be trying putting the gasket that goes around the frame. So I need to clear out sort of around the nose cowl, as well as the rest of the inside of the engine bay. I also thinned out some of the venting at the front as well, just again to give that sort of more realism of a thin bit of aluminium. And for the gasket around the engine bay, I just use soldering strips. I did originally use Tammy extra thin. It does bond it slightly, but I probably recommend more using super glue, which will give you, a stronger fix. And as you can see, just cutting away any excess around the ends. So with the engine bay door, I cut off that little bit of exhaust at the end, because that's not going to be necessary when the door's open, and just thinned it out just a little bit more, because it was still just a little bit too thick. And again, just clearing that away with Tammy extra thin. Also decided to put a little bit of structure to the inside of the panel, just using some really thin bits of wire. Again, super gluing those in. What I did is just glued the end in, let that set, and then pushed in to go around where the part of the panel goes around the manifold, and then again just finishing off it all with super glue. Also, with the attempt to just neaten it all up, I put some super glue down and then some tin foil, and as you can see there with the cotton swab, just burnishing all that down so it fits into all the recesses and around the sort of structural bracing of the panel, just to get that to sort of all sort of tie in, rather than just having those just bits of wire on their own, because it just doesn't look quite right. And then all the way around the panel, after I've glued it, I just cut around with a craft knife, getting rid of that excess, and then with some thin strips of that tin foil, just to make the frame stand out a little bit more than just a flat surface. So just builds up more of a body of the frame, and again particularly over where the wire is, it just makes it all tie in a lot more, and just make it look like the structural sort of bracing it should actually be. paint of the engine is quite basic. The engine generally, the engine block is black, and I used MIG steel to paint the cylinder heads and the wiring, and I used some AK rust, and I wasn't really happy with this, so later on I used some rust pigments, and that brought it out and made it look a hell of a lot better. Then overall I put a wash using AK's engine wash, and then with the cotton bud just wipe out any excess, which makes it look a little bit more used and a little bit more grimy. Also, to add a little bit more extra detail, using some AK leaks and stain, I used as you can see my needle there, loaded the brush with paint and just sort of splattered that on, which again just adds a little bit more to the engine. Makes it look like, you know, there's been issues with oil and it just splattered all over the place. You know, I think just one of them things I think that really just brings the engine more to life, you know, and just not so simple and plain. So there you go, guys, that's the engine part done. I'm not 100% sure on what the next episode is going to be. Definitely going to be putting the fuselage together. It potentially might even be painting it. It depends on how long the episode ends up being when I put it into the final cut. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you're new here as well, please give us a like and subscribe. Any comments, good or bad, if you didn't like it, give us a good reason why, and we'll see if we can make it better for you guys next time. Of course, also you can follow us on Facebook, on Instagram. But in all of that said, I do appreciate you guys watching. Thanks very much, and as always, I'll catch you again next time.